Hello, it's great to see you here today. We're going to be working on some whales today. I had been planning to title this particular video Whales and Waves, but unfortunately, I've tried recording the wave part of this video twice and it didn't work. So we're just going to be focusing on the whales. And these particular whales are going to be way off in the distance. One time when I was taking a ferry over from the mainland to Vancouver Island, we saw some whales breaching off in the distance, sort of leaping out of the water. And they were really tiny way over there in the distance. So that's the look that I'm going for today. And as I was doing my drawing, I was thinking about what shapes, what stitches I could use to create my whales. And I think that they're too tiny to bother with cutting out a piece of cloth. So I've just created the outline of a whale that's coming out of the water with its head up. And now I'm just filling it in just with straight stitches with a stem stitch till I fill in the area that I've established for the body. And when I'm close to where I want the fins to be, I'm going to use a single chain stitch to create a fin that's angling downwards on either side of the body there. And that's pretty much it for a whale that is head up, that is coming out of the water head up. And that went pretty well. So then I thought that I would create a whale that's heading into the water so you can see the whale's tail up above the water. And I started out the same way, using a stem stitch to create the outline of the whale that's heading back into the water. And so it's going to be wide at the top and then narrow at the bottom where the base of the tail's heading into the water. And I don't know what I was thinking, but I clearly don't have a mental model of what a whale's tail looks like because, yeah, I don't know, this didn't quite go as I thought it should go. And I spent a lot of time trying to adjust the shape to try to make it look what I think a whale's tail should look like. And it just was not getting any better. I don't know. And I just kept fiddling and adding a little bit more here and a little bit more there and trying to kind of get it to look like a whale's tail. And it just didn't happen. But I kept working on it for a while, and I just kept adding and adding and adding, and it was not getting any better. And eventually, I just filled it all in and decided that I would give it some thought, because sometimes if things that are not working out, it's a good idea to just walk away from it and give it some space and then come back later with when you're less frustrated. And giving this some space actually helped me to get some perspective on this piece. So at this point I decided that, well, that first heads up whale turned out pretty well, so maybe if I put another one in there, that will make the tail up whale look a little bit less noticeable. It would disguise it a little bit. So that was the first thing that I tried to save my whales here. And I did that pretty much the same way I did the first one. And it looks all right, but it doesn't help. And then I realized not only does that whale's tail look a little bit funny, but it also looks like those whales are somehow attached to the ocean. The colors are not different enough to make them look separate from the ocean. So I thought about, well, what am I going to do about that? So what I decided was that, like I had made the ripples around the flamingo's legs, I decided to make some lighter color lines just with one strand of thread, and I could even have used probably sewing thread, a light color sewing thread, which will modify the color off the water a little bit. They're not really ripples because the whales are so far away that you wouldn't actually be able to see ripples. but they could be, sunlight or light reflecting off the water or something like that. It doesn't really matter. By making these rows of stitches, I'm creating a little bit of a separation so that the whales do not look like they're part of the water, that they're not attached to the water. So the color of my water is pretty dark, and the color that I use for my whales are also pretty dark. So I decided to create that separation with a lighter color. But if the water and the whales had been lighter, then I could have used a darker color to create these lines here. Another thing that I could have done, and which may have been a good idea, is I could have used a lighter color of gray for the whales like I did for the sea serpent last month. You could easily tell that the serpent was not part of the water, that it was something different. So different ways to address the problem. But sometimes you think things are going to be one thing, and I thought that the color thread that I'd picked was going to be fine, but after I did the stitching it turned out that it wasn't. So I think that's better. Is it great? Probably not. But then I actually decided to look up what a whale's tail looks like, and I had the shape backwards. After I looked it up with a new plan in mind, I went about modifying the tail here to create that new and improved shape. But again, I didn't have to rip the whole thing out. I could work with it. It's going to be bigger than it was because, like I said before, you can always make things bigger, but without taking out the stitches, it's hard to make things smaller. I think this is going to work out all right. So I'm adding more stitches, just straight stitches again. And is it going to be perfect? No, not everything needs to be perfect. So I think that these look like whales. Perhaps if I just had the tail there by itself, it would look less like a whale. But I think with the other two side by side, it gives you enough information to tell that they are supposed to be whales off there in the distance. So I think that looks pretty good. Not my best piece, but not bad. And once again, happy stitching, and I will see you again soon. Bye for now.